Good morning. So, what is my story? A story about how a raw village boy in some corner of Karnataka ended up being a global leader, leading some of the very interesting business of General Electric company. That's the story that I'm going to take you through today. And I know it's a province of a lot of experience. I have put in 20, 25 years of experience. It's a province of knowledge that I have to speak, but I also believe that it's your privilege of the wisdom to listen. So the offer that I have by the end of today's talk is what is in it for you when you go through my journey of life, that what I could do, staying in India while being attracted all over the world as the journey takes place. So I had a very interesting culture in my career. So when I started very young, the only thing that worked in my mind all the time was curiosity. And this curiosity fundamentally got me into how do I get to a deep basics that I need and have some very grassroots experience. And I started questioning anything and everything around the world that I lived in. Every small bit of thing till I got an answer that is fully satisfactory to me. I started questioning everything around me. I realized as I spoke to teachers, as I spoke to people who have been successful, and as I spoke to most of the people that I met, I realized over a period of time that it is better to ask a dumb question and get clarified than remain dumb forever. Right? Sounds familiar? So fundamentally, there's a lot that goes on during curiosity when you're learning. And I went through a real hard journey, starting from a no place and learning it all over. And I also realized most of your learning, most of the deep learning happens outside the classroom. You still need to be in the classroom, but your actual deep learning happens outside the classroom. And try and learn how do you connect dots. I did that a lot throughout my career. That what did you learn, what do you see, and what do you practice? Once you start connecting these dots, perhaps that was the best thing that happened for me as I went to. And of course, next thing I did was I experimented everything that I learned. Since I'm telling you my story, the experiments that I've done in various stages of life, whether it is quality of life to highest level of technology, to the failures of the world, to simulate the failure of the PSLV that all of you have witnessed those days. So learning with experimentation is ability to take the risk. So there should be an ability within you that you take the risk to learn, and that needs an attitude of learning. And of course, there is always a fear of failure to overcome. So my experience has been that when there is a failure, thinking of failure, there is a fear of failure, you always move towards it so that you can overcome the fear of failure. I did that quite a bit of time, and we have courage to share the failures that you have faced in your career so that you know what did you learn. A failure without learn is a true failure. If you're learning out of a failure, perhaps is much, much better in terms of what you learn. And I always believed it. Somebody said you're very knowledgeable. I never understood how people say that one is knowledgeable, the other is not. Then over a period of time, I realized that it is a level of ignorance. How much you ignore the world is how less knowledgeable you are. So I figured that out over a period of time that everything that needs to be experimented has to happen so that your learnings becomes very, very strong. The next one was, I was in a dilemma. Now, how do you understand yourself so that you resolve your dilemma to what is the right way to go forward in your career and find a path that you can also make a difference to the rest of the world that you live in? So I figured out you got to play to your strengths. You should know what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are so that you can play to your strength all the time. And also learn respecting criticism. Criticism is something that you will get throughout your life. Irrespective of where you do and how you do and what you do, you get criticism throughout. And I started evaluating every criticism into strength and figure out how do I convert every weakness that I identified myself into a strength that I can play to build a career. So fundamentally, there is a lot of time that is spent in the career in the beginning to make myself understand, so that I can resolve dilemma. So over this journey, I learned something which was very interesting to me. Unless you have ability to change yourself, your learning was not getting useful to create difference in the world. So I learned learning is the key to self-confidence. And actually, the self-confidence is the foundation to the adaptability, and adaptability is at the heart of change. So unless there is an ability that you display, an ability that you develop, that you have capability to change, your learnings are not getting useful to make a difference. So the sooner you resolve the dilemma, that where your strengths are and where you want to go, and that's where perhaps you make the largest difference. That's what I learned hard way in my career. And of course, last one, it is you who matter. There's no matter what happens around you, fundamentally it's your passion, your integrity who matters, what matters. And always realize that how is more important than what. How means, distance, direction is more important than the distance, the other way of saying it. Just to give example, if you play golf or if you lost yourself in a forest, you realize suddenly that direction is more important. You don't care about the distance, but once you get the direction right, but as you know, you can hit the destiny that you're looking for, right? So always realize, and this is very important in aspect of what you want to succeed. And I practiced it all over. It yielded a very good result in my career to be where I am. And control your own destiny. If you don't control your own destiny, somebody else will control it for you. So this is the culture in which I started with curiosity, ended up with what actually difference that I can make. So I was all over. So if you go back and look at, so what did I do with all this learning, with all this experimentation, and find out myself that where my strengths are and where my passion is, how do I follow? So I started with engineering. Entire my 30 years of career in engineering, fundamentally what I did, I was modeling materials that I don't really fully understand them. Though we understand quite a bit, but we don't fully understand materials that we use. And we create shapes that we can analyze, but not completely. Right? We can get to analyze, right? Then you got to do this to withstand set of forces that I can't properly assess, right? And you have to do all of this in such a way that user has no reason to suspect the extent of your ignorance. So fundamentally, that's what I did in engineering as a learning, end of the day. So if you compare the science and engineering, science perhaps gives you the lot more deeper, engineering gets you into the application, and I ended up becoming an engineer. And now what do you do as an engineer? Now, once I acquired all this stuff, and I started thinking about, I need problems to solve. If I don't have problems to solve, everything that I learned and every passion that I have is not contributing to make a difference, right? So I started praying for problems. Perhaps I'm the only engineer you would find who pray that let the world be full of problems so that I get opportunity to solve. So I started praying for problems, and more the complex problems I got to solve, the better the engineer I became, right? So, and I delivered a larger difference. So from a perspective of learning to making a difference through an engineering, conceptually, and figuring out a way to do it has been an awesome journey for me as I go. And I always embrace the big picture. If you're doing what you're doing without embracing the big picture of where the difference is going to be and what actual contribution is happening, then perhaps you'll get into a dubious fulfillment. So I always prayed for complex, and most of the complex problems existed in developing world. Whether you take any developing country has got the most complex problems in the world. I'll give you one example. We wanted to, as a businessman, I went to Government of India and asked them, can I replace all the level crossings that railways has with automated crossing system? There are about 7,000 plus unmanned and manned level crossings in India. And I went and made a really significant business model and went and asked the government of India. And they said, Vageesh, this is all fine. What do I do with 7,000 people? Where do I find a job to them? Right? So my enthusiasm of making it automated versus now 7,000 people becoming with no job is a complex problem to solve within the system in which we live. Right? I can go on giving, there are tremendous examples that India has a complex problem. You take any railway track around the world, there's only the train that runs, and other than crossings. But in India, you got a cow crossing it, you've got a buffalo crossing it, you've got school children crossing it, you've got every person who crosses the railway track without thinking. So you still have to solve the problem. So the more the complex the problem was, is much better for me. So I always focused on what's available in the developing world so that I can make a difference. Then I got into an issue called balancing between head and heart. My head is demanding something else, my heart is demanding something else too. So how do I balance it? So I finally resolved it thinking that it is more fulfilling to be part of creating a better life than migrating towards an easier life, which would end up may not be fulfilling what I want. So fundamentally, I remained, continued to balance so that I can solve complex problems, can look at what is the best way we can make a difference. So this is what I did as an engineer throughout 30 years of career. So some of the examples that I can give you. This was one of the things when we started doing in 1990s that everybody in the world said that it is impossible to do this project in India. When the first time when we carved out what this program is going to be and how can we come out with an indigenous designed light combat aircraft, perhaps when we conceptualized it, this was the most state-of-the-art design that we went through. With Dr. Kalam's leadership, all of us started shaping it, but fundamentally, everybody said it's impossible to do it in India. But, I'm very sure some of you have already seen it flying around, and you will continue to see it, and once it is inducted into the Air Force pretty soon in this. So it was all suspecting about why is it not possible? And we went through a real changes into the thought process of scientific community in India to make it believe that this is possible to do. So there's a lot of challenge. It's a very complex problem to solve when it comes to you take a man in a machine, take it up and bring them back is the most complex scenario that you can ever imagine, and more so with aircrafts in a combat scenario. So it's a lot of complexity to solve, which was never done before. And we also started introspecting what is viability out of it, and how do you create variants of this that helps us to make it a lot more interesting and a lot more productive to achieve some of these things. And believe me, technology excellence in India, including the entire scientific community in India, went to the next level with the program like this. There's a lot of investment and a lot of work that has gone in, so we could achieve a much, much better technology excellence within the scientific community and engineering community in India. And of course, we failed many a times within the system as we started this. So from a time of 1993 February to 2001 January 4th, when we had the first flight, perhaps the 8 years of rigorous technology excellence, rigorous business models that need to run through the Indian Air Force in order to make sure that this program becomes a successful. This is one of the flagship that India has done. As you see this aircraft getting inducted into the Air Force, I feel very humbled when I see this aircraft whether it is in Republic Day parade or you see it in flying over the head. I can always tell everybody. I tell my daughter, it's my design. So it's very fulfilling to me. And it has been one of the significant experiences that I had. Then after I got into General Electric, the world needed a lot of power on wheels. I started designing locomotives. And these are, again, very state-of-the-art locomotives that you go through. The metal machine that you see on the screen has got 28 microprocessors and about 5 million lines of code in it that is connected to the rest of the world. This is one of the, again, we took the requirements of the world and made sure that every railway track can have this locomotive. So this is, which was significant impact that we could create in the rail industry as we go. So I learned a lot of things on this way. So one is advanced technology. Other is how do I convert knowledge into economy. So this is a lot more to do with business. How do you make a product and has technology in it, but still convert that into an economy that helps run the business? And I started becoming a leader and recognizing as a leader, figured out what it takes to do. So once I did this, and we achieved all of this in 2005, then I was again at a junction. What next? What do I do? What is the new problem to solve? So either I had two options. Either I could pick up meritocracy, the software around the world, or stay with complex India and try and solve some of the complex problems in India. So I ended up with working on one of the, again, prestigious project that Indian Railways had, which was the biggest deal that India has done in its history as a project. So these are 1,000 locomotives that need to be supplied to Indian Railways in a matter of 10 years with a completely built factory in India and produced out of India. And this is a PPP model that we designed. And trust me, it took 7 years to start from the discussion in Planning Commission to get an order to work on this project. It took 7 years for us to construct, deal with the government, look at what is the right way of doing it and a perfect management of the tender process, and get us through to get to where this. And this is now also regarded as reverse innovation. The design that we have done in India now can be applied to the rest of the world. So this is a significant impact that has happened. When all 1,000 of them start pulling freight in India, we would add 1% to the GDP growth in India. So it's a significant milestone in Indian history again. There's a lot that has happened around it. And perhaps there is nothing more has been fulfilling to me, making this as a reality. And today we have handed over already 5, 6 of them. We will finish handing over about 70 of them by end of this year, and 100 every year for next 9 years. So it is going to be, and I'm sure each one of you will get an opportunity sometime in your life that you will be pulled by the technology that we developed over here in India. So this is perhaps the best fulfilling experience that I had as I worked as an engineer on this program. So what is in it for you? What does it mean? With all this story and my story, this is what I did. So this is what I have, which I think is works. But disclaimer is all this has worked for me. You got to figure out your way. But it doesn't matter where you come from, how you look like, and what language you speak. What matters is you and your integrity. That's where you can make a difference to the world. And to be a leader, it's a personal journey. You just have to make sure that you take that journey, always self-reflect, self-inspection, and self-renewal. You got to keep accepting the change that happens to the rest of the world. You got to keep accepting and stay relevant what happens to the rest of the world, and keep thinking about what the world needs that we got to solve as a problem. And I always say this, every complaint that you have is an opportunity to solve the problem. And everywhere I go, I deliver a lecture or I talk to people, there is a ton of complaints that I have that we get in India, right? And all of you as my fellow citizens and of this country, you hear a lot of complaints. And think about every complaint as an opportunity to solve. I can tell you, I already have started working on the water problems. There is a lot of travel issues that has been just now the previous speaker spoke about. There's a whole lot of technology differences that we can make, figure out how this nation can get to the next level. And what helps me do that is building network. And I also believe that how do you build this network becomes more important than the bridge itself. So how you keep this relationship and build network. And without network, without you and your team and the network, it is difficult to achieve what you want to dream, whatever your dream is. So it also helps you to perform at your fullest potential. So that's what I realized. And choose to be in a place where the problems are. If you're in a place where the problems are, you experience the problem so that you are that more nearer to find the solution versus being in a solution and try and fit that solution to the problem. And I've seen that happening many a times. When a solution that works for the same problem in some other country, if you bring that back in example like India, beautiful example is General Motors car. General Motors thought that they will reduce the cost of the car, and they took out the power motors of both windows in the front seat. And General Motors forgot that most of the people who buy that expensive car, they sit at the back. So if you look at what happened after that, so it's regretful, right? So all the, they took the power windows, motors of the back seat. So all the drivers had the power windows, and the people who were sitting, the owners of the car, did not have the power windows. So it's like you can't have the same solution that works everywhere. I mean, there are umpteen numbers of people who have tried significant such technologies that have been successful elsewhere, try and bring that in India. It does work. And in the previous, if you go back to the history, people have solved those problems, right? Somebody solved it for communication, somebody solved it for milk, somebody solved it for news, somebody solved it for data. So there's a whole lot of things that have happened, right? So a lot of future depends on what you do and, and quality of work that you do. So be at it always and never stop learning. That's my message today based on my story. So good luck in your journey. Thank you.